Hello, I'm Walter Noason, the Life Sciences Product Manager for IndySoft. Prior to coming to IndySoft, I did 21 years as the Metrology Lab Manager for Medtronic, the largest medical device manufacturer in the world. Our Tip Tuesday topic for today is 21 CFR Part 11, Session 2 of a 3-part session, where we're going to talk about username and password and limiting system access. Now let's start off with some background on 21 CFR Part 11. The FDA regulates biomedical companies' computer software use with 21 CFR Part 11 electronic records and electronic signatures requirements. There's about 20 individual requirements within 21 CFR Part 11 that lets biomedical companies know how to manage their computer software. Now, even though 21 CFR Part 11 is directed at biomedical companies that sell product in the United States, these requirements are actually very useful for anyone that uses computer software to manage equipment records. It is, I guess you could say, good business practices. And I hope you see that at the end of this session. Now, as an overview, we're doing 3-part sessions of the main aspects of 21 CFR Part 11. The first main aspect we covered in November Tip Tuesday session, dealing with the 4 electronic signature components of name, date, time, and meaning of the signature. In the second main aspect of 21 CFR Part 11, which is what we're going to talk about today, is the requirement to have 2 distinct identification components, such as username and password, and controlling system access. The third main aspect of 21 CFR Part 11 is on audit trails of database entries and actions, and we're going to cover that in a future Tip Tuesday, tentatively targeted for August. Now, before we get into the details of what we're going to cover today, I want to show you the elements out of the FDA website of 21 CFR Part 11. And I have that on the screen here, a screenshot of the actual website from the FDA. And what's nice about the FDA, because they are a federal government, is they're required by law to provide their information free of charge and as easy access as they can to the public, such as us. And so that's very nice, because then we can look at these requirements and have easy access to them to know how we can be compliant. This is the first page, kind of the outline of 21 CFR Part 11 in the various paragraphs. And we're going to cover 2 details today in 2 different parts of the regulation. The first one is in paragraph 11-200, where we're going to talk about the 2 distinct signature components of, for example, username and password. And then paragraph 11-10, which gets through the idea of how to control or limit access within the software. Paragraph 11-200A1 talks about employing at least 2 distinct identification components, such as an identification code, username, pseudo, and password. So that's the first kind of main detail. The second one is in paragraph 11.10D, where it talks about limiting system access to authorized individuals. Now that we've seen how it looks from the FDA's perspective, now we're going to go into the software itself to show how can IndySoft be configured to be compliant with these 2 elements of 21 CFR Part 11. This is the main screen of the IndySoft software. And in order to perform what we're going to do, you need to have a system administrator access. Of course, it times out on me as I go right to it. So I'm going to re-log in. And you can see under my name here as a user, I've logged in as a profile, a system administrator. So that's why I'm going to be able to do all the things I demonstrate for you today. The first aspect of what we want to detail is how do we create within the software the username and password. And so we do that by going to the configuration admin menu and look for Profile Manager. And if you have the authorized access, which that in itself is demonstrating what we're talking about today, is because I'm a system administrator, I'm going to be able to have, I've been authorized access to do this role. So it's going to ask me to log back in to make sure that I have the appropriate access to do what I'm getting ready to do. And we go into the main screen of the User Profile Manager, which has 3 distinct areas to it. So in the first element of how to define the username and password, we're going to go to the upper left-hand section of this utility screen, which is where we're going to have the users identified and it's set up. So we have a list of users here and their profiles identified here. I'm going to double click on my name. Okay. So up comes my edit user screen for me. My username is identified here. I've got a password that I can have created here, a new password, and then confirm. This will be a system administrator, for example, setting up a new user. And then that system administrator would probably check this box, which then when the system admin finishes this process, the first time that the user Walter logs into IndySoft, they will have to put in a new password. So this is a kind of nice way for a system admin to set up a default password and then allow the user to immediately have to, under the first login, create their own unique password. Pretty cool. A couple other areas that are, well, I showed you one area is useful, it's this checkbox here. The other area is useful is another aspect of 21 CFR Part 11 is the idea of aging, need to have the capability to age passwords. And so therefore, here now we have this choice where we can request a new password every so many days. Usually 90 days is the typical default, but you can make it 6 months, which would be 180 days. That's another default way to set up. So those are the elements of the first detail of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to cancel out of this. The second detail of what we're demonstrating today is going to be in these 2 areas. We're going to start off in the lower area here. And here's the concept of setting up profiles. And think of profiles as segmenting the database of usage for users. A system administrator profile probably would have the maximum access to the database. But maybe a customer would have more limited access. Out of the box, IndySoft provides a certain number of profile setups. So we got an auditor set up, we got a customer, engineer, manager, reports only. If you want to just give somebody an access to the database to just run reports, view information, they would be read only and not be able to edit. That would be an example here. You might have shipping clerks, and a system administrator, and then technicians. However, the power of this utility is you could create as much segmentation as you wish. You can add as many customized profiles as you want to further segmentate access of the software to however you need. Let's say, for example, I don't see it on here right now, but if you wanted to add a QA approver process to where all that person does is approve records, then you could create a QA representative profile and then make sure that they're only doing what they're able to do. Now, how do you do that? Well, you go to this other section of this Profile Manager utility screen, and in this section is where you can edit further, very detailed, each profile that is identified. In this case, I have System Administrator showing here, but I could easily add a technician on here, and then what you're going to see is how super powerful this profile manager is to segmenting the database to provide exactly the access you want a person to have when they log in. And there's just a whole list here. And if you want to see further details, click on a down arrow, and now you can see the checking and unchecking of the various selections. Out of the box, IndySoft has these defaulted to certain setups, and they're pretty good. And then you just have to double check them and tweak them for your own customized environment. I hope you see the power of being able to comply with 21 CFR Part 11 in limiting or controlling access of login users to where they need to go to do their work within the software. This is, I think, an example of the value, a hidden value, if you will, because it's not just, even though it might have been designed for biomedical regulated companies to have to meet regulatory requirements for logins and access, I think you can see that just for any company, for any department that's using a computer software, to be able to ensure that when someone logs in, they're able to only do what they need to do is really pretty powerful, and make sure that the database can be maintained as healthy as possible for its life. And so this is an example of the power and value of this element of IndySoft. So what we covered today was session 2 of 3 sessions of 21 CFR Part 11 requirements. Session 2 being the elements of how to set up a username and password to meet the 2 distinct elements requirements. And then how do you limit access to the software once you've identified a username and password? What are they able to do once they log in? Those 2 things together meet the session 2 main aspect of 21 CFR Part 11 FDA expectations. I hope you will join us in August when we'll cover session 3 on how does IndySoft meet the requirements of 21 CFR Part 11 and the aspects of audit trails of database entries and actions. Thank you for your attention today. We'll see you later.